Elias. Tower, this is the Invincible Reason. Registration number 7763225 coming from, Drumduthui requesting docking. I gave a heavy sigh. I had hoped for at least a minute of relative calm before dealing with my next task. There were days where I hated being an air traffic controller, and the last 3 days were certainly one of them. Copy Invincible Reason, stand by for hangar assignment, I said before looking at the hangar bays. The last 3 days could only be described as hell with all the ships, most of them merchant vessels, seeking shelter either aboard or near the strength through diplomacy. All of this would have been well and good if it weren't for the fact that I was one of the lucky bastards that had to manage the airspace around the city-sized ship. And that wasn't even accounting for the constant drills that the average citizen aboard the ship had to go through in the wake of the Yalayan threat. Thank God those Marines took that ship out of commission before it could do some real damage. I felt myself starting to daydream, so I shook my head vigorously and looked back down at the various docking bays around the ship. After a moment studying the sea of charts and docking procedures going on, I finally found a place for the ship, a nice parking spot in Hangar Bay 37 Zeta. I turned back on my headset. Invincible Reason, this is the tower. You are cleared for approach. Make your way to Hangar Bay 37 Zeta, docking clamp 33 Beta. Please confirm. There was a moment of silence. Confirmed tower, Hangar Bay 37 Zeta, docking clamp 33 Beta, coming in for approach. I switched off my radio and gave a sigh as I pulled up my pad and tallied up another successful docking sequence. I looked out of the window of the tower to see the very same ship that I had guided float silently through the void. Some people hated being this close to space, and the complete hostility that it represented, but I loved it. There was something about the adrenaline rush that you could get when the only thing being between you and certain death was a sheet of glass a foot thick. Sure, most kinetic munitions couldn't crack the glass, but that didn't change the rush that I would get just by staring out the window during work. It almost made the work worth it. Almost is the key word there. "So, what's your total now?" asked Jerome, one of my co-workers 2 stations down. I eyed my total for the first half hour of my shift. "I'm at 33 so far, pretty good considering that 99% of all of the Terran ships out in the galaxy are accounted for in one way or another." Another one of my co-workers, Isaac, gave a dismissive snort. "That's impressive, Varela, but that's nothing. I've had 45 since starting this shift." I nodded my head. "Very nice," I said. I put my hands together before pointing at one of the traffic controllers that was still on the radio with his ship. "Let's see Lucas Johnston's count." Johnston finished talking to his ship and typed some things into his pad. He slowly turned the pad around to show us the number being displayed on it. My jaw dropped to the floor. 97? How the hell did you pull that in half an hour?" Isaac shouted as he spilled energy drink all over himself. Johnston just shrugged. "Well, when you're not quoting dumb movies from a couple of centuries ago, you tend to do your work a lot faster." Isaac thought for a moment. "It can't be that old, can it?" asked Isaac. "I could have sworn that one came out this century at the very least." I shook my head. "No, dude, it came out 2000. If it came out this century, the special effects would have been a hell of a lot better. But Johnston is right. We should probably get back to work." After a round of nodding and agreement, we all went back to the extremely difficult task of finding a place for the thousands of ships within communications range of the strength through diplomacy. I wish that I could say that the time flew by. I mean, it did, because I have some nice coworkers, but it also didn't because there were some ships that were requesting to dock that didn't even have any business trying to dock in the first place. "Tower, I don't understand why we can't dock here," said one of the idiots as I tried to fight the migraine that was coming my way. "Shuttlecraft 37Z 995. As I have said 5 times already, your craft is not high enough on the priority list of people who need to dock currently. Break off from your current course and go back to whatever merchant vessel you came from." Negative Tower. We really need to dock now." This conversation has been going on for far too long, I thought to myself as I continued to rub my temples. "If you have a medical emergency going on right now, then we will have an ambulance craft dock with you to take any injured passengers you may have on board. Even if that were the case, you still don't have clearance to dock at this time." There was silence. "Copy, Tower. Just know that I'll be reporting you to your supervisor for not letting us dock." I don't know why, but I was feeling particularly combative, so I said, "Go ahead. We're so short-staffed right now that they couldn't afford to fire me even if they wanted to. Now stop harassing me and go back to whatever ship you came from." There was more silence as I thought that they had disconnected from the call. "Fine, this is Shuttlecraft 37Z-995 departing." "Oh, thank God," I said out loud as I relaxed a little in my chair. It wasn't long before I felt a light tap on my shoulder. I spun around to see who could have bothered me when I was in my element, only to see that it was my replacement. "Shit, is my shift over already?" He nodded. "Damn, I'm sorry, dude," I said, standing up. "Go right ahead." He held his hands up. "Hey man, I get it. Time flies when you're trying to manage a shit show like this." I shook my head. "You don't even know the half of it." I paused as I thought for a moment. "And watch out for Shuttlecraft 37Z-995. They seem like the idiots that are going to become a venting hull if they keep up with their shit." He nodded. "I'll keep that in mind. Enjoy your time off." "I sure as shit will," I said enthusiastically, exiting the room and into the elevator that would take me to the transit system. Only a minute passed until I was among the thousands of other people that were coming to and from their workplaces. I hopped on one of the rail lines to my apartment complex. The gunmetal gray and shining walls of the transit system gave way to a view of one of the many alien corridors that were a part of the embassy portion of the ship. Not that you'd see very many aliens these days, with all that trouble going on, but they were still there and being used by the various mechs that people aboard the ship had. The rail line also passed by one of the many parks aboard the ship. I started to daydream a bit more until I finally made it to my stop, a modest apartment complex at the heart of the ship. It looked quite like a regular apartment complex you would find back on Terra or a colony on Mars, except it was made entirely of metals and composites, painted to look like a building made from wood and stone. It wasn't long before I was at my door. "Daddy, Daddy!" came the shout of my two children, both under the age of 10, as I opened the door. I knelt to give them both great big hugs. "Hey there, kiddos! Did you miss me?" "Of course we did, Daddy. Oh, I need to tell you about what happened today." My oldest then went on a tirade of describing his entire day, down to the last detail and how he planned to make the next even better. "All right, I think you should give Dad some space," came the fantastic voice of my loving wife Marina as she came over and gave me a kiss. "Glad to have you home again, sweetie." I smiled. "Good to be home. You wouldn't believe the day that I had today." "Let me guess, someone tried to dock without permission again." She shook her head. "You'd think that they'd stop trying that by now." It was my turn to shake my head. "You would think that, wouldn't you? No, some shuttle was requesting permission to dock when I told them more than 5 times that they couldn't. I just can't deal with these people some days." She smiled again and pulled me into a hug. "Well, at least you have tomorrow off. You could take the kids over to the park." I nodded. "Yeah, it would be nice to get out of the house for purposes not related to work." My pad chimed, and I looked at it. It was my boss asking me if I could work tomorrow because the person that was supposed to cover that shift had gotten sick. I gave a heavy sigh as I tilted the pad over to Marina. "I'm going to kill the bastard that caused this shit."
Ambassador Tobias, good God, do I need a vacation? And I'm not talking about a vacation to the entertainment district for a week. I mean a vacation on Titan or some other luxury place where I could just turn off my communicator for a week before coming back. But being United Terra's premier ambassador to those damn Xenos, I or anyone else on this ship couldn't afford a vacation. I rubbed my temples to ward off the migraine that I could feel forming in the back of my head. I reached into a drawer on my desk as I looked around my office. It was absolutely covered in trinkets and various gifts that I was given from the various nations of the world, along with some of the things that I was given by the diplomats of aliens that had come to the strength through diplomacy over the last 3 years, or at the very least the ones that I could fit into the room. I stared at the bright blue feather given to me by the delegate from the Cocholet almost exactly 3 years ago. Feathers were a big part of their culture, and giving one to a person was a sign that they considered you a good friend. While a good portion of the galactic community were wary of us with how secretive we were, they seemed to embrace us despite how we carried ourselves for the first few years of our interactions with them. Thank God for them. I finally managed to fish out some of the pills and washed them down with the glass of bourbon that I had been nursing for the entire day. I looked over at the computer with the schedule for the rest of my day. Thank God I got done with all the meetings I had with United Terra's leadership early. Everyone in those meetings were more than concerned about the general goings-on outside of the Sol system, and the strength through diplomacy was banned from going anywhere near there in the off chance that one of the Xenos delegations had put a tracker on the ship somewhere. Fine by me, with how much security is ramping up, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that no one is allowed in and out of the system right now. I stared at my now empty glass and considered pouring myself another helping of the liquid. Unless something unexpected happens, I'll just be a warm body in this seat until I go home. And then my phone rang. Son of a bitch, I didn't even have time to knock on some wood, I complained out loud as I lifted the receiver. Ambassador Tobias, I said in a professional voice. The sound of my assistant came through the phone. Sir, he said, the Koshale delegate has requested to speak with you. I swore under my breath. And why wasn't I informed of this sooner? Because the request came in just now, sir, came the reply. I gave a heavy sigh and rubbed my temples. All right, put them through. They've always made time for us. It would be a dick move of us to not do the same. And would you like to take this in the mech or no? He asked. No mech this time, we've lied to them for long enough, just put it on screen. I'll let him know you're ready. I nodded as I straightened my tie and ran a hand through my rapidly graying hair. If we have any more galactic incidents before I'm retired, I'm afraid I won't have any hair left to smooth out. And why the hell do we still have ties? My train of thought was suddenly derailed by the appearance of the Koshale ambassador on my holodisplay. I bowed my head deferentially. Ambassador Mekil, it's good to see you again, even if it is just over holocall. What can I do for you? Misil seemed to study me carefully with those piercing green eyes of his multicolored feather crest betraying the emotions that he was feeling right now. I could tell that he was hesitant to speak to me, but there was a great deal of sympathy written on his features. In the wake of everything that has happened recently, I never had the opportunity to speak with you. How are you doing, Tobias? He asked with genuine concern. I gave a heavy sigh as I considered lying to him. No, he deserves the truth. I have certainly had better days, that is for sure. With everything going on, there's no shortage of things to do. No less than 2/3 of the species in the galactic community have made statements condemning the Yaleans and their warmongering. I shook my head. I just wish there was someone else that could fill in for me so that I can take a nice long vacation. But no one else has the insight or experience that you have. I looked up, surprised to hear that. He chuckled, still studying me intently. I would know because I'm in the same boat. No one else in the hegemony understands Terrans quite like I do, and with the shutdown of trade with United Terra, they're looking for any insight they can find. He paused for a moment before I felt the familiar ping of my pad going off. I looked down at it to see a file, sent directly from the Koshalian. I looked up curiously. What is this? I asked as I started skimming the document. That's our statement about the situation. There is also a statement showing our solidarity with United Terra, and that we believe that, considering the outcry of certain groups in the Senate, you were justified in hiding some parts of your biology. I started to rub my temples again. There were rather vocal groups in the Senate that seemed to believe that since we lied as much as we did, that we weren't to be trusted in any way going forward. That's one way to put lying to the entirety of the galaxy for as long as we did. Why are you doing this? This is going to ruffle some feathers over in the Senate. Why sacrifice the reputation of your people for a group of aliens that you have only known for 3 years now? He was silent for a moment as he gathered his thoughts. Because if we don't, then no one will. He locked his eyes on me once more as he seemed to stare directly into my soul. If there is one thing that Koshalians cannot abide by, it's those abusing their power to bully those they deem smaller than them. I never imagined that that would be so literal, but here we are, he finished with a bit of a laugh. I chuckled along with him. I don't think anyone could have seen that coming. When are you going to release this statement? I want United Terra to have a response ready for when you do so. He nodded in a very Terran way. We were planning on releasing this in the next 3 hours, but we can hold off on it for you to prepare your statement. I waved my hand dismissively. That will be plenty of time for us to draft up a statement. Thank you once again for being willing to stand with us like this. I'll make sure that your people are rewarded for this. He moved his feathers in a dismissive fashion. Think nothing of it. I know if the roles were reversed, you would do the same for my people. He paused. It was nice talking to you. Hopefully the next time that we speak will be in person. I nodded. I look forward to the opportunity when it presents itself. Have a good day, Ambassador. And to you as well. The feed was suddenly cut, and I stared out into the office once again. Misil was definitely one of the good ones, unlike most of the other delegates that just cared about the profit margins and production lines of their nations. I pushed the intercom button. "You called, sir?" came the voice of my secretary. "Yes, get word to the merchant fleets that they can resume trade with the Kosher Lions as soon as they are able, and make sure we're giving them a steeper discount than what we're giving everyone else. I don't care if we start bleeding money from this venture." I forwarded their statement over to him. "Also, get the writing department to make a statement on this. We have 3 hours before it goes live." As my assistant wrote all of that down and told me he would take care of it, I leaned back in my chair and poured myself another glass of whiskey. So long as nothing else goes wrong, we should be able to get through this.
Alex. "Oh shit," I said aloud. "I think I might have a problem."